Finally, after 51 years after Bruce Lee's death, we are at a great twist. So what I'm going to reveal you has been discovered just few times ago, and I have also other informations arrived lately. So I can tell you that Bruce Lee's death was a murder for sure. Do you want to know? Torbid. There's more Torbid that you can imagine. Now, new truths have emerged, and I tell you that after, of course, a brief, dutiful introduction, in this video documentary I will make you see all these extremely rare, shocking videos, more shocking than you think. I start. I want to stress that I'm a very huge fan of Bruce Lee, not only of Brandon Lee. And if you haven't watched my documentary, I'm talking about the first part of the documentary Who Killed Brandon Lee, where I was forced to talk briefly about, of course, his father, the legend, the myth of the martial arts, and not only a legend, one of the greatest, important and legendary not only actor but man who marked not only the history of cinema, and also he is the godfather of martial arts, but is one of the greatest legends, a myth, an immortal legend. I start, of course, I want to stress that I haven't not only the poster of Brandon Lee in my bedroom, but of course Bruce Lee too. I think it's absolutely one of the biggest legends of the world ever. I start, really. He deserves that the truth about his death to be revealed. I start. So, Bruce Lee was born on November the 27th in 1940 in San Francisco, United States. To be more specific, in the Chinatown of San Francisco. And he was the penultimate of 5 children, and among the names his parents gave him, there was the name Xiao Long, that in Chinese means little dragon. Because think about this fact, that Bruce Lee was born in the Chinese hour and in the Chinese year of the dragon. So when you watched his movies, for example, Enter the Dragon, he was the dragon, not only for the movie. He was born in the Chinese hour and year of the dragon. And Bruce Lee, many of you, I don't mean the one of the greatest fans all over the world like me, but I mean people who don't know Bruce Lee's story very well. They think that he was only limited to martial arts. No! He's the godfather of martial arts. But before martial arts, is the first movie he shot. He was only 5 years old, and among his childhood and his adolescence, before martial arts movie, he had already shot 20 movies, and not about martial arts. He was a complete artist, from dance to poetry and so much more. So, one of the greatest actors in the history of cinema, and he had marked the history of action movies and martial and movies with martial arts in the history of cinema for eternity. So, he was the first actor to show, to display in the big screen and in a more than perfect way the Chinese martial arts, and until that moment there weren't had shown real martial arts on the big screen, because martial arts were limited to fightings, to matches, but on the big screen he was the first one, and because of he shot these movies above all in Hong Kong, the western part of the world couldn't imagine that the Orient cinema could conquer all over the world, all over the cinema, thanks to Bruce Lee, the one and only Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee learned martial arts attending for 5 years the prestigious school of Wing Chun. Then he kept on studying martial arts in the United States, perfecting himself more and more. I tell you that I think that you completely agree with me. Bruce Lee wasn't human. I think that he wasn't a human being, because what he was able to do in martial arts, in fightings. It was something not human, but supernatural. Because Bruce Lee, he was really, I think so, and then all the world, I will make you hear the interview where there is a secret finally revealed after 51 years by Chuck Norris and many others like John Ben and so on. He was the strongest and the faster martial artist ever. Nobody could beat Bruce Lee. Nobody. If he hadn't been killed so young, his son, Brandon Lee, died, and it was a murder too. Maybe only Brandon Lee could reach the level of his father, nobody else. Another Bruce Lee one born again, the only one. So I was telling you, remember this date because it's absolutely one of the most important dates to understand better how Bruce Lee died. So remember that then he moved from the United States with his family, his wife Linda Cadwell Lee and his two children, Brandon Lee and Shannon Lee, to Hong Kong. Because he wanted to keep on his career, especially shooting movies about martial arts in Hong Kong. Remember this date because it's not important, but very, very, very important. Bruce Lee, on August the 13th in 1970, due to an incorrect pre-warming of the muscles during a weightlifting training, got a real serious injury, namely a strain at the fourth sacral nerve in the lower part of the back. This is a serious injury. So the doctors of that time told him, your career in martial arts is completely over. This severe injury is so serious that you could not be able to walk anymore. And if you have the miracle that you can walk again, stop. You won't do martial arts anymore. You can only be a normal actor playing quiet scenes, or you can change your job. This was unacceptable for Bruce Lee, because the first love, the first reason to live for Bruce Lee was martial arts, as many as his closest friends and then the producer, actors who played with him, friends, all the people who had the honor to know him, stated that when they were with him, he was talking about martial arts, training for martial arts were his first love and his first reason to live. So Bruce Lee, when he had this brutal news by the doctor, he didn't give up at all. So he didn't rest, as the doctor warned him. You must rest as much as you can, because you could not to return completely normal. You could have problems in walking. I don't give a fuck. Martial arts is my life, and I prefer to find another way than give up on martial arts, because for Bruce Lee, giving up on martial arts was already dead. To give up on martial arts was like to be condemned to death. So he didn't rest as the doctors told him to do, and he also had a brief convalescence, but he wasn't human. This is what I really think. I'm not kidding. He wasn't human. Because even if he didn't follow the instructions of his doctors, his recovery was extraordinary. He had this serious injury in 1970, and then he started to shoot these unforgettable movies. Of course you know it. I don't know how many times I watched these movies. I'm talking about on August 1970, the real serious injury, and then I don't care for Bruce Lee, because after his extraordinary recovery, and then he started to train over and over. And I also must add that he didn't care to take many painkillers, and much worse. And much worse, and the worst substances he could assume. Of course, it's not me that I make you this stronger revelation. I have all the concrete proofs, incredibly, by Bruce Lee himself. And then I will reveal you how. So, with the help of these painkillers and many worse substances. He was perfect. And he shot these mythical movies like The Big Boss in 1971, Fist of Fury in 1972, and in that year he shot one of the most famous movies ever, not only for the martial arts in the movie, but it's a movie who marked the history of cinema. I'm talking about, and this movie, remember, it's also important because made Bruce Lee's health worsen. But this is a myth. I'm talking about The Way of the Dragon, also known with the title Return of the Dragon, with Chuck Norris. And think about that the scene of the fighting, the violent fighting shot in the Colosseum in Italy, in Rome, has become not only the most important and famous scene in action and martial arts movies, but also in the history of the movies. This fighting scene in The Way of the Dragon marked the history of the whole cinema, and it's still considered the most famous fighting in the history of cinema. It doesn't matter the kind of movies, not only in the action and martial arts movies, but also in all the movies of the world. The fighting between Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris in the Colosseum in Rome, Italy. And then there were rumors that that scene, so successful shot, was too much realistic to be fake. There were rumors that Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee really fought in that scene. It was a real fighting and not playing to fight. Is it true or not? You will discover it later, because finally, after 51 years, Chuck Norris himself reveals you if that fighting was true or false. And I go on. And then I will show you in those videos the reason why his health, even if he was so young, was very bad, and his health was worsening over and over. In 1973, he shot, unfortunately, his last movie, Enter the Dragon. I want to remind you about fightings that almost all of his movies were prohibited to minors under 14 years old in almost all the cinemas of the world, because the fightings were really crude and bloody and they looked real. Was it true or not? Soon you will discover it. And now, as I told you, unfortunately, Enter the Dragon, his last movie, in which he was the protagonist. Stop! I want to remind you the endless talent of Bruce Lee that you fans already know, I guess. Think about that the Way of the Dragon, that it's a masterpiece. He was the director, the screenwriter, the protagonist, and also the co-producer. So, really, he was able to do everything. Even when he went to the university to study philosophy, think about that to be able to pay the bills of university, he was both studying and working as waiter to pay the bills of the university. And he was a very good dancer too. It was a myth. So, here we are. I told you that Return of the Dragon was released at the cinema when Bruce Lee had just died 1 month before. Enter the Dragon. I don't know if you noticed that I tried to make my studio in dedicated to Bruce Lee, the dragon. I have also a dragon amulet. But let's return to the story. So, Bruce Lee died on July the 20th in 1973, and the movie Enter the Dragon was released on August the 24th in 1973 at the cinema. He died only at 32. So, and then immediately became the legend of the martial arts. But, of course, when a person, in this case an actor, Bruce Lee was, at that time, he was only considered the most important person of the world. So, he died at only 32 years. So, it's normal to wonder which was the cause of death. And now, I go deeper in this, forgive me, in this cold case that now we are for sure, and then I will reveal you. Fortunately, Bruce Lee can have justice, but you must know that he didn't die, because even if his health was really terrible, and I will explain you the reason why it was murder. So, all the obscure points before the most shocking videos. Okay, the most obscure points. On May the 10th in 1973, during the session of dubbing Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee suddenly felt very, very bad. He went to the toilet and started to vomit, to have convulsions and high fever. And it wasn't the first time, because he also collapsed on set, as I will make you see in the making of, behind the scenes. So, he was so bad that he was immediately taken to the hospital, where they found out the presence of a cerebral edema that was very serious. They gave him the mannitol that it's necessary to reduce the swelling of the brain. And in fact, don't blame mannitol, because at that point, mannitol in that case saved his life. Because he was very close to an aneurysm. So, they gave him the mannitol, that of course it's necessary to reduce the swelling of the brain, and in fact the mannitol in that case saved his life. And now the evening of the death. During the evening on July the 20th, 1973, he was at Betty Ting Pei's house. Betty Ting was a famous actress and cinema producer in Hong Kong. There was fixed a kind of party at Betty Ting house, because Bruce Lee wasn't the only guest. He had to talk with also his business partner and the producer Raymond Chav, and there were also other colleagues, other friends. But at a certain point of the evening, the other friends and also Raymond and so on, they were all gone away. At a certain point of this evening, where there were only Bruce Lee and Betty Ting, he was beat by a very strong and irresistible migraine. So Betty, to help him, gave him a pill called Aquagesic. That is a medicine containing both aspirin and meprobamate. Bruce Lee went went to rest on a bed, waiting to have a better mind and hoping to rest and then to feel better. And instead, he died. Of course, there was a trial in Hong Kong, but there weren't witnesses. So at that moment, there was only Betty Ting. The thing I can tell you for sure is that he was taken to the hospital too much late at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Hong Kong. And there are two versions about Bruce Lee's death, because it was said that he was pronounced dead at 10 p.m. but that he arrived at the hospital already deceased. Instead, the latest revelations say that in Betty's bed, Bruce Lee, when he wasn't able to awake anymore, he wasn't dead, but he was in coma. And of course, Betty lost a precious time that could save Bruce Lee's life, because instead to call immediately the ambulance, she called first the producer Raymond Chow, and then it is said also her doctor, who attempted to revive Bruce. Where all the attempts failed, they called the ambulance. And so, then Bruce Lee died. Moreover, the autopsy didn't explain very well the cause of death, but not what provocated that cause of death. Because the autopsy, and here I have the results of autopsy, don't worry. The autopsy this is what is written in Bruce Lee's autopsy. There was a probable allergic reaction to one or more substances in the hypoagesic pill, with a much possibility meprobamate. And then they found out that he was already hit by two cerebral edemas. So the autopsy found out the scientific cause, because they wrote that the most evident symptom that brought to the death of Bruce Lee was that these two cerebral edemas were due to an excessive work of the latest months while he was shooting the movie Enter the Dragon. And he didn't follow the instruction given by the doctors in 1970 when they warned you, calm down, stop with martial arts and fightings, otherwise you can die. You can do quite movies or changing your job, but not martial arts, fightings, and so much stressing in the exaggerated trainings, also weight lifting trainings. But of course, Bruce Lee didn't follow their instructions. They said that it was evident the loss of weight, there was dehydration, and his brain was swollen like a sponge. It was the evident sign of a sudden and excessive accumulation of liquids in his brain due to a possible renal dysfunction in his lungs. Due to a possible renal dysfunction. And they also found there was flow in his lungs and also blood in his air sacs that they found all these characteristics very often in people who practice kung fu and extreme martial arts. And of course, we can't deny that Bruce Lee, kung fu, extreme martial arts, that was for sure. And also the producer and business partner Raymond Chov admitted that Bruce Lee had received too much hard hits and beats on the set of the movies. And there shouldn't be those so hard hits in the movies, but the other actors and also Bruce Lee were completely went out of the script. They were completely out of the script of Raymond Chubb. Unfortunately, Bruce Lee had that really serious injury in 1970. He received these so hard hits in the following years in all those movies I have just told you. So it looked like normal death, even if he was only 32. However, after the funeral and after the autopsy and the funeral, the official cause of death remained unknown. So there were riots in the streets of Hong Kong. I have just forgotten you that in the autopsy they found not only equagesic but also 4 milligrams of cannabis. But these were the doctors, not me. Doctors stated that cannabis was a light drug. There never had been previous deadly cases in the history of forensics medicine. That's what the doctors stated. Now, I told you that there were so many riots in the streets of Hong Kong, and it was necessary the intervention of agents in proof of riot. And then it was called the final verdict. The final verdict was a cold shower, not to say a freezing shower. So, the judge was very courageous in Hong Kong at that time, because this was the final verdict by the judge. Even if the doctors found a scientific explanation, talking about the 2 cerebral edemas and all that I just told you, the judge put in doubt the accidental death. So you can imagine the riots in the streets of Hong Kong, fans who screamed out, "It was a murder!" In fact, the assassination hypothesis was also by the American karate champion Mike Anderson, who was a close friend of Bruce Lee. His hypothesis: an untraceable herbal oriental poison that in an autopsy done 36 hours after the death, it's untraceable. And in fact, Bruce Lee's autopsy happened after 36 hours from his death. But of course, it's only an hypothesis with no concrete proofs. The greatest part of the public opinion talk about cover-up, and they accused the mafia, the Chinese mafia, and even the government. I really tell you what I think. The government is to be, of course, to be excluded, because Bruce Lee, of course, the authorities didn't look at him. He wasn't very friendly for the authorities, but there wasn't a real motive to kill him, because Bruce Lee wasn't a revolutionary man, a man dangerous for the government. So, the government, absolutely not. And even the mafia, the great mafia, as they mean, the hypothesis that he was showing martial arts on the big screen was too much weak, because he wasn't then the only one who displayed martial arts on the big screen. So, I must tell you that in 2022, a study by Spanish researchers hypothesized that his death was due to a previous undiagnosed renal dysfunction. Maybe then I will make you see. Maybe yes, maybe not. It's not the cause of death. Don't worry. Of course, as I told you, even if the judge put in doubt, stated the final verdict, it's not, I put in doubt the accidental death, so people, fans, but also journalists, started to have suspects about these people. First of all, one was just betting. Betting was, I can tell you that because it's not a secret anymore. And now we enter in the hot topic, in one of the scandal truths. Betting started to hang out with Bruce Lee about in 1971. She was a famous actress, above all, for her erotic parties in the movies. And she could have, this is not what I say, these were the hypotheses, she could have a passional motive, because I can tell you that Bruce Lee, it's not a secret, had a wife, and he was truly in love with his wife. But in his life he had many lovers, so betting wasn't the only lover he had. So I don't think that she could hope to become his only woman, because he was married with children and he had also other lovers. She wasn't the only lover, but they hypothesized a passional motive, because he never left his beloved wife for her. I see a weak motive, according to me. She couldn't participate to Bruce Lee's funeral because she was threatened to death by the fans. And then many people said she is an actress in Hong Kong, but she is from Taiwan, because Betty Ting was was a Taiwan woman and not a woman, in Hong Kong woman. But I don't see I don't see the motive. But she was the lover of several bosses of the tribes, the criminal gang. It was a criminal gang, a kind of mafia in Hong Kong, and she was the lover of these bosses. She, at the time, she was completely addicted to alcohol, drugs, and she had debts from hazard games. But the most suspected one was... Here I am, in front of my personal computer, ready to show you the most shocking, disturbing, Torbid revelations and videos. Warning, some images could disturb the sensitivity of many viewers. Before this, I was just saying that the main suspect about Bruce Lee's death was his partner, business producer and friend Raymond Chav, because it was discovered that Bruce Lee was on the verge to separate from his partner business, because it is said that the producer never gave him the agreed percentage in the takings of Bruce Lee's movies. And if Bruce Lee had died, he would inherited all the money of Bruce Lee's movies. And so it happened. So Raymond Chav inherited all the takings of Bruce Lee's death. I want to remind you that I'm not accusing Raymond Chav. I will show you videos, because videos talk by themselves. I can tell you that another obscure point was that Raymond Chav was close to the tried, to people Betty Ting used to hang out. So this was a great obscure point. Raymond Chav died at 91 in 2008. And now I start with the softer, let's say so, then to the most shocking, Torbid and burning issues. So, we all fans always wondered if the fight between Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee in the way of the dragon in the Colosseum of Rome was true or false, because it looked really true. And now, finally, after 51 years, Chuck Norris admits this. I immediately go with the video. Here we are.
To Beardy, Bruce Lee Central.
Hey everybody, it's Birdie here. What's going on, guys? Okay, so I've always suspected that the fight scene between Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee on Way of the Dragon was ad-libbed, essentially making it a real sparring match between Chuck and Bruce, but I could never prove it until now. Let's take a look.
one of the great movies that people still remember is your movie with Bruce Lee, Return of the Dragon. It had that amazing fight scene.
Yeah, right. Still a classic today.
Still a classic. Just tell us what, just off the top of your head, comes to mind when we talk about that fight scene with you and Bruce Lee.
Well, the whole thing is Bruce was a tremendous martial artist, and when we did the fight in the Coliseum in Rome, he just said, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I'll do these techniques, you know. And he said, okay, I'll do those. So it was kind of an ad-lib type of a fight. But I think what made the fight so spectacular wasn't so much just all the karate that we do most of the time in pictures, but it was the interrelationship between he and her.
So there you go, guys. Chuck Norris himself confirming that the fight scene between him and Bruce Lee on Way of the Dragon essentially was ad-libbed, making it a real sparring match between Bruce Lee and himself. So what you're seeing here is the build-up to that fight. This is the lobby of their hotel. And the rumor goes like this.
Yes, have you heard that Chuck Norris himself admitted that that fight was real? So there weren't rumors at all. And now, maybe Chuck Norris was forced to reveal you this particular because it has been reveal a secret recording that had to remain secret between Chuck Norris and John Ben, the American boss in The Way of Dragon. I immediately make you hear this extremely rare secret recording. And after 51 years, finally we know the truth. I immediately go.
Welcome to Beardy, Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee.
I was having dinner with Chuck. I did ask him. I said, if you and Bruce were in a real fight to the death, who would win? And without thinking, he said, Bruce, of course.
Right.
Nobody could beat him.
Hey everybody, it's Bertie here. What's going on, guys? Okay, so the voice you just heard was the voice of John Ben, the boss from Way of the Dragon. Now, this was a secret recording. He wasn't aware that he was being recorded. So he sat down with Chuck Norris and he asked Chuck Norris who would win in a real fight between you and Bruce Lee. And Chuck said that Bruce Lee would win that fight. Now, if you ask Chuck Norris today, he would never, ever admit that Bruce Lee would beat him in a fight. Chuck has done hundreds of interviews, and he never, ever, ever admits that Bruce Lee would beat him in a real fight. Why? Well, I just don't know. So John Ben and I talked together actually years ago. We had a phone call, and I just wanted to get his impressions of Bruce Lee. And he told me that he used to vacation with Bruce Lee. And all of the time that they would hang out together, Bruce Lee would talk about martial arts, and it was only martial arts. He was only thinking about training, exercise, and martial arts. And he also said that Bruce Lee was the fastest and strongest guy he had ever seen. Now, John Ben is 6'4". He's a huge guy, a big guy. And Bruce Lee would push him around like he was nothing. And you even saw that in the movie Way of the Dragon. So yeah, he said, I remember he said over and over again on the phone conversation that Bruce Lee was the fastest guy he'd ever seen, the strongest guy he'd ever seen. So yeah, there we go, guys. Chuck Norris admitted to John Ben that in a real fight, he would lose to Bruce Lee. So there we go, guys. Thanks for watching. See you guys later. Bye.
So, of course, but I want to say that Bruce Lee was unbeatable. Nobody could beat him. Of course, he would. He won everybody. He beat everybody. It was invincible. And now I make you see and hear what Chuck Norris states about Bruce Lee's death, because according to Chuck Norris, he reveals you the cause of Bruce Lee's death. I can tell you that I agree with Chuck Norris at 50%, because I think that Chuck Norris is right. On the other side, he can't tell you what he didn't know, because there's so much more Torbid. At 50%, he is completely right. On the other side, of course, he didn't know what I'm going to reveal you, so of course he couldn't know. I make you immediately see what Chuck Norris says and reveals about the death of Bruce Lee. I immediately go
scene between Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris in the 1972 The Way of the Dragon is not only one of Bruce Lee's most legendary fight scenes, but also one of the most memorable and one of the best fight scenes in the history of martial arts film. While Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris are enemies in the film, they were actually teacher and student and also close friends in real life. They occasionally spar and fought each other outside of camera. According to Chuck Norris' interview, the former world karate champion met Bruce Lee in 1968, and both of them worked out together for a few years until Bruce Lee left for Hong Kong to pursue his movie career. Chuck Norris' first and only film with Bruce Lee was the 1972 The Way of the Dragon. Both of them spent a few years together in the late 60s for martial arts training, and also in the early 70s for the film. Chuck Norris is one of Bruce Lee's close friends, and he knew a lot about Bruce Lee. He talked about Bruce Lee's death in a recent interview. July 20th today marks the 50th anniversary of Bruce Lee's passing. Let's listen to what Chuck Norris said about Bruce Lee's death.
Then Bruce naturally did Enter the Dragon, which was his last movie, and it was probably the biggest grossing movie as far as martial art movies go. But Bruce was 32 years old. Let me explain something about his death too, because there's, I guess, so many rumors that are going about how he passed away and so forth, about touch of death and drugs and so forth. And so I'd like to clarify that before we go on with the demonstration. Is Bruce in 1968? He's pretty heavy in the weightlifting, as you could tell. He was very well built. And he was lifting weights one night with Kareem Jabbar, who was a student of his when he was in Los Angeles, playing at UCLA. And he tried to lift too heavy weights, and he ruptured the disc in his back, and he was laid up in the hospital for 3 weeks. In fact, the doctor said that they didn't know if he'd be able to walk again or not. But of course, with a person like Bruce, who's got the drive and determination to achieve anything in life, he was up in about a month, and within 3 months, he was as strong as he ever was. But he had constant back pains from that day on, and he was having to take medication to keep the muscles in the back loose and relaxed. So what happened is that when he was in Hong Kong preparing for his next movie, he was working with a girl named Betty, and who was going to co-star with him, and he got a severe headache. So Betty gave him some antibiotics for the headache, and with the medication he had taken for his back and the medication he had taken for his headache, they reacted to each other and made his brain swell up, and it created an aneurysm or ruptured blood cells in his brain. And that's actually what happened. So if anyone asks you what happened, that you can tell them the true story.
So he was right at only 50%, because I told you in the first part of this documentary, of course, that brutal and serious injury he got in 1970. He wasn't supposed to shoot all these movies with extreme martial arts. But there's much more Torbid that Chuck Norris, of course, didn't know. And now, Now I make you see something really. This interview I make you see to John Ben is not considered rare, is extremely rare. So I immediately go and make you see because it's very interesting. I immediately open the file. It's really rare. John Ben, the American boss in the way of the dragon. And he died like Raymond Chav in 2018 too. Here we are. I immediately make you see. I immediately make you see. Here.
Yeah, he didn't know.
Here we are.
In this interview is John Ben. He played the role as a mob boss in Bruce Lee's 1972 The Way of the Dragon. As you can see from this film, John was a tall man compared to Bruce Lee. He was standing at 6'4" and Bruce was about 5'7". By looking at both their sizes, we had no doubt that John has more advantages compared to Bruce Lee if they would go for a real fight. However, according to John, while they were planning for a scene for The Way of the Dragon, Bruce Lee hits John with his shoulder on the set. John fell on a chair and he flipped, and Bruce Lee wasn't even used his full strength. Can you imagine how strong Bruce Lee was? This is definitely a rare interview of John Ben that every Bruce Lee fan must watch, because he asked Chuck Norris who would win if Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee were in a real fight to the death. Check out this interview and see what Chuck Norris replied. You will be surprised.
I get to be friends, all of them, and of course, work closely with Bob and with Chuck. And it's interesting. Several years later, I happened to be in Manila, and I was in a little bar, and I had a girl on each side, and looked across the bar, and there was Chuck and a little girl on each side. And I said, "Hey, Chuck," so we ended up having dinner together. And I asked him, I said, if you and Bruce were in a real fight to the death, who would win? And he said, without thinking, he said, Bruce, of course. Nobody could beat him. Yeah, I was right there with the Bob Wall fight, and I was in the background of the when they had the fight in the restaurant, so I got to watch it. And there was, of course, only 10 days of it was shot in Rome, and so the Colosseum was another set on the set in Hong Kong, and of course that's one of the reasons so many people watch it, because it's the best fight scene probably of any martial arts film between Chuck Norris and Bruce.
So of course he was unbeatable. He was the strongest and the fastest one. Nobody could beat Bruce Lee. And now now be careful, because I'm going to show you a very crude video and images, so be strong. I go and make you see this video. It's I immediately arrive, and so you will understand that Chuck Norris was right when he talked about his health, because after that severe injury he also kept on getting too much hard hits on set. That was also out of the script. I immediately make you see. Be careful, be strong, because these are really, this is a very, very strong, very strong. Don't worry, I make you see immediately. Forgive me, I immediately arrive because I have all these images on files, and so I must find you a really creepy photo, so that you can understand better what I mean. Forgive me, be patient, and you will regret it, because these are really, really, really something you must know to understand better is death. So I go. This is a photo in which Bruce Lee fainted in blood during a scene of one of his movies. The photo you can watch, Bruce Lee was in True Blood. So you understand what I mean. A person, doctors warned him, don't do martial arts anymore, don't do fighting scenes, because even a hit on head can be fatal. So you can see this shocking photo in which Bruce Lee felt bad and collapsed in the set, and you can see his face. He was bloody. So of course his health was always, and also his life was always in serious danger. Okay, now I keep on showing you videos. I know that it was a very strong. I know that it was a very strong picture, but it was necessary to make you understand. I immediately go to the video. So now we start making serious before burning issues, shocking videos. Now we must get close to that.
And how he died. It's all bullshit. It's all nonsense. I'm going to explain exactly how he died today. And we can put this discussion to rest once and for all, okay? Okay, so back in the day, Bruce Lee got injured, okay? He had a back injury, a spinal injury. And he got in trouble because the doctor said that you're never going to train again, you're never going to do martial arts again, etc., etc. You have to put your martial arts career on hold or permanently stop. So Bruce had a choice. He could say, okay, I'm going to step down, I'm going to relax, I'm going to get a career, another job, whatever, become just an actor, or I could start taking painkillers and do physiotherapy and go back to working out. But I'm going to be in chronic pain for the rest of my life, and I'm going to be completely dependent on the painkillers. And Bruce Lee knew this. He's a very smart guy. So he knew the risks. And he went for the second option. He said that, okay, if I'm going to stay on this planet, at least I'm going to do it my way, okay? I'm not going to live to 80, having a boring life. His life, remember this guy, martial arts was his life, okay? Martial arts was everything. He is the godfather of martial arts. That was his entire life. So if he stopped doing martial arts, he's dead anyway. So, I mean, the choice was easy for him. He was going to do what he wanted. He was going to follow his passion, his dream. He was going to do martial arts, no matter what it took, okay? So he took that choice. I'm going to take the painkillers, and I'm going to do physiotherapy. I'm going to get trained. I'm going to get back to shape, and I'm going to get stronger than ever before. And he did all of that. But, like I said, the downside is he needed to take painkillers every day. Just to get by, you know, the pain was so insane. This is nerve pain we're talking about.
So, now then we enter, because I can tell you that there weren't only painkillers. Now I go on. I show you this important video, and then we really enter in the hot, burning issues, shocking, true revelations. And also images. So I immediately go.
Forget bodybuilders today, forget martial arts today. His body was decades and decades and decades ahead of anything you had seen in that time. So this is, you can say he sacrificed himself for martial arts, and he sacrificed himself for the better of mankind, actually, because we get to see the end result in Enter a Dragon and the movies he made before he died. We get to see his incredible martial arts, his incredible body, his incredible technique, his speed, his power. I mean, the guy hit like a heavyweight.
So you saw that he also lost weight in the last movie. It was pretty visible. And now, what many fans and people don't expect if you don't know it. So 2 years ago, there have been a shocking discovery. 50 letters written by Bruce Lee sent to Bob Baker. Bob Baker, I explain you better who he was. And in this collection were found more than 50 letters, revealing something unexpected. A dependence by Bruce Lee to all these drugs. I make you see this video not because I want to destroy Bruce Lee's reputation, because he's my myth. I have the poster and I will never drop it down, because Bruce Lee will always be immortal and we must thank him for his legacy. These letters reveal you that every person, even a myth like Bruce Lee, we all love Bruce Lee, and of course he was full of perfections, and of course every human being at least some flaws there must be. So this is important to understand better the character of Bruce Lee, but Bruce Lee is always the myth. Now I am ready to make you see these shocking letters. The real letters I will make you see is calligraphy, what he wrote, and is shocking. You know, it's the first shocking step. I go. Okay, here we are. Be ready. It's a strong video. Really. So, I immediately go to make you see this video. I immediately go. It was a shock for everybody when we vloggers, journalists discovered these letters just about 2 years ago, and it was shocking. Make you see everything.
Who support me by watching this video.
I go
But hey,
and
man, enough
make
of
you
that.
see.
Let's dive into the details. So the big question people have is, well, what are these drug letters and why are we just now hearing about them? This story just broke the first week of July of this year when the letters were discovered at an auction sale where various memorabilia from Bob Baker and Bruce Lee's collection went on sale. The memorabilia sold included over 50 letters that Bruce Lee and his wife Linda sent to Bob from the late 60s all the way up to April of 1973. Now, I'm not going to go through the specifics of these letters. Kung Fu Genius actually read through a lot of them on his podcast, so you can check out his video from a few weeks ago.
Okay, now don't worry, I make you see. Don't worry, I
and
start.
Bruce Lee's back injury that he had in 1970. You know, like, this is pretty tame stuff to discuss with a friend, but what's got everybody talking is the not so tame stuff. So there are numerous references
So
to
I
drugs in
make
these
you
letters
see
where Bruce is talking about
in detail
got
his
everybody talking.
letters. So now you can see this was the real Bruce Lee's calligraphy. This letter was handwritten by him to Bob Baker. And now the burning content of the letters.
Is the not so tame stuff. So there are numerous references to drugs in these letters where Bruce is talking about smoking marijuana, dropping acid, and using.
So you can see this is the letter, one of the letters, and I make you see that he asked for so much. The list: cocaine in large amount, acid in fair amount, ash or grass. The former can be more, while the latter, even cleaned, has to be carefully packaged. As to what you put above, you know better. Inside books, clothings. So Bruce Lee was asking Bob Baker, cocaine in large amount, acid, ash or grass, and he was asking where to hide all these great amounts of different drugs, books, inside books, clothings, smoking marijuana, dropping acid, using cocaine. I can tell you that I read all these letters. There are more than 50 letters. I make you see the most important parts, because on the other parts, in this conversation, they were almost only talking about drugs, and then of course about where to pay, how much to receive, and so on. But this was the content.
And cocaine. In one letter, Bruce Lee is talking about how it took him a whole day to.
So, I want to make you see the exact dates of that time of this extraordinary and very rare material. I'm showing you the drug letters, more than 50 letters, the letters by Bruce Lee to Bob Baker. As you can see, February 2nd, 1970, the 6th of March, 1970, and so on. And to ask for cocaine, he used, and for other drugs, he used the word holy stuff. By the way, wouldn't mind going with you for some of those holy stuff before leaving for Hong Kong. Now I go on.
To recover from using Bob Baker's holy stuff, and in a few letters, Bruce talked about quitting because it was taking away from his training in Jeet Kune Do, but the letters and requests for drugs, they still continued. So the question that some of you might have is, well, who is this Bob Baker guy? Bob Baker played the Russian bad guy in Fists of Fury, and from these letters we learned that, well, Bob may have even smuggled some drugs into Hong Kong as part of this arrangement that he and Bruce Lee had. Bob was one of Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do students who was helping teach classes at the Oakland School. He was the participant that Bruce demonstrated the one-inch punch on in 1964, but I think their friendship actually goes back to Wally J. Luau in 1962, where Bruce Lee was first really introduced to the California martial arts community. Bruce actually demonstrated the one-inch punch on Bob Baker at that luau, and he knocked him over a table, according to Leo Fong's story. So these guys go all the way back to pretty much when Bruce Lee really hit the martial arts scene in Los Angeles in the 60s. And it had already been long rumored that Bob Baker was Bruce Lee's dealer, but previously people only thought that Bob was Bruce's weed man. Now, Bruce Lee's use of marijuana was something that people thought was only a small thing before Matthew Polly's biography, Bruce Lee, A Life. Before Matthew Polly's book, the thought was that Bruce chewed hash occasionally to deal with his back pain. This was based on Bruce having trace amounts of hash in his stomach when he passed, and the fact that the concentrated form of cannabis that's found in hash can be used as an anti-inflammatory, an analgesic, and a muscle relaxer. Polly's book revealed that, well, Bruce was actually a frequent pot smoker, and that he probably started smoking at these Hollywood parties when he was trying to break into the inner circles of these A-list celebrities that he was courting to either become his martial arts students or to give him a shot at some upcoming movie projects. I mean...
So, you know that... I know that it's a very shocking video and also very shocking about... all those letters. I know it's very tough. And now one of the most shocking revelations about what Bruce Lee was taking. Not only I say, because it's not only, but not only cocaine, cannabis, acids. There is much. The worst substances he could assume. I go. We are really close to this shocking revelation.
Him in Hong Kong, and we're completely losing our minds. But back then, people made a bigger deal over Bruce using marijuana than they would have made over him using a little bit of
I
nose
also
candy.
make you see
So
this letter. It's very important because you are here to discover the truth. So, the letters again. I go to make you see something shocking.
Marijuana than they would have made over him using a little bit of nose candy. So we don't know how much Bruce was actually using, but I'm going to say that I do think he had a problem based on the amounts of cocaine.
Excuse me, I make you see.
Would have made over him using a little bit of nose candy. So we don't know how much Bruce was
candy.
actually using, but I'm going to say
that
I do think
nose candy cocaine. And then I make you see this other shocking letter. He used some words in code with Bob Baker, who was friend and actor, and also, let's say, we have the proof is dealer. So you can see the date. We are in 1972. You can see 1973. So Bruce Lee called when he says hear me Coca-Cola, he didn't mean the drink. He meant cocaine, as when he writes down coke and the drink. No, it wasn't the drink. It was a name in code for cocaine in his case. And he asks packages and quality. And now the most shocking revelation.
Had a problem based on the amounts of cocaine and the frequency that he was requesting it from Bob. Now, Bruce also mentioned using M-pills and also experimenting with acid and various other hallucinogens with his student actor James Coburn.
So this is the most shocking revelation. not only cocaine acids, he also used experimenting drugs with acids. Oh my God! So you understand that who killed Bruce Lee? He was, or she was, or they were killing a dead man, because a man with two cerebral edemas is very bad health conditions, and also this abuse of the experimenting drugs, acids, cocaine. In fact, his student then he survived because he decided to detox from all these substances. But even if I think that Bruce Lee's life wouldn't be very long, this doesn't justify a murder, because even if he used heavy drugs, he did extreme martial arts with two cerebral edemas. This was a murder, and it's not justifiable. Now, the most Torbid discovery. Who killed Bruce Lee? I go. I warn you, these are burning issues, shocking videos, really strong, so warning, because there are many videos that can disturb the sensitivity of the viewers. I'm not kidding, these are really strong. I immediately go be ready to discover
there was a service in Hong Kong last week.
Okay.
12,000 mourners, many of them weeping teenagers.
This was Bruce Lee's funeral. It's really sad and shocking.
The guests were admitted by invitation only, and there were only 200 of those sent out. A few fans without invitations showed up at the door, but they were quietly turned away. They waited in small clusters down the block. The invited guests were a mixture of Seattle's Chinese community and Hollywood. Both worlds were familiar to Lee. The leaders of the Hollywood contingent were Steve McQueen and James Coburn. Lee taught both men his special version of the martial arts at his school in Los Angeles.
On July 20th, 1973, the greatest martial artist in history was found dead. An autopsy would declare that the cause of death was cerebral edema. At the hospital, Bruce Lee was pronounced dead around 11:30 p.m. It was reported that he had collapsed at home and was found by his wife Linda. With the details presented, it would have been silly to believe that anything out of the ordinary occurred that night. However, the media was misled. Lee wasn't home the night that he had died. Instead, the day the world lost Bruce Lee, he was at the home of Betty Ting Pei, his alleged mistress.
So, this was one of the hidden truths to avoid the scandal at that time. And now I make you see how much talented was Bruce Lee, really. we must, his talent was endless, really.
He and his family moved to Hong Kong, where Lee would become a child actor, working in over 20 films. Bruce was also fond of poetry and danced competitively. Longing to come back to America, Lee moved to Seattle as a teenager in pursuit of a better life. Lee found work as an instructor of both dance and martial arts while attending and finishing high school. At university, Bruce met his future wife Linda and started his very own martial arts dojo, where he would create Jeet Kune Do. The Lees moved to California so that Bruce could expand his martial arts business and pursue acting. They opened 2 more dojos and welcomed baby Brandon and Shannon to the world. As a pioneer of martial arts in America, Bruce became the victim of scrutiny from martial arts purists as they accused him of revealing ancient Chinese secrets to Americans. Growing tired of the criticism regarding his teaching, and no longer desiring to further commercialize his teaching, Lee decided to pursue acting full-time. As an actor, Bruce Lee was featured in 26 episodes of the hit TV show, The Green Hornet. From 1966 to 1967, Lee starred as Kato, the trusted sidekick to the main character, the Green Hornet. He made several guest appearances in TV shows and feature films, but failed to make it into mainstream. At the time, Hollywood did not believe that an Asian lead could draw an American audience. Disappointed with the roles that Hollywood offered, Lee moved back to Hong Kong to pursue stardom. In Hong Kong, Lee would break out and establish himself as a household name. Creating a new genre, Bruce Lee starred in The Big Boss, Chinese Connection, and Way of the Dragon. With great success, Lee became the star he had always wanted to be. Furthering his success, he co-founded Concord Productions with his friend Raymond Chow and finalized their newest film, Return of the Dragon. Shortly after, Lee halted Concord Productions' Game of Death so that he could join Warner Brothers on his first American feature film, Enter the Dragon, despite objections from his business partner and friend, Raymond Chow. Bruce Lee had aspirations of becoming a star in America and was well on his way of achieving his lifelong dream. 1 month before the premiere of Enter the Dragon, Lee was set to have dinner with his business partner Raymond Chow to celebrate the continuation of Game of Death. Bruce visited Betty Ting Pei's home prior to the dinner party for a pre-celebration.
Forgive me, the camera had stopped. I immediately go.
To celebrate the continuation of Game of Death, Bruce visited Betty Ting Pei's home prior to the dinner party for a pre-celebration. Complaining of a headache, Bruce asked for an aspirin. Betty gave him one of her prescription pain medications, and Bruce went to lie down in Betty's bed. Betty later found Bruce unresponsive and immediately called Chow. Upon arrival to Betty's home, Chow examined Lee, then called an ambulance so that Bruce could be taken to a hospital. To avoid a scandal, Chow told the media that Bruce had collapsed at home and was found by his wife Linda. Bruce was pronounced dead at approximately 11:30 p.m. that evening. An autopsy revealed that the cause of death was a cerebral edema, or swelling in the brain. Several doctors examined Lee's body, but could not come to a conclusive explanation as to what caused the cerebral edema. The contradictory findings led many to believe that there was more to the story than what was being shared. With rumors swirling, it was said that Lee was murdered. If Bruce Lee was truly murdered, who did it, and why?
And now.
Who killed Bruce? There have been several reports that Chow
forgive
and
me.
Lee had a strange
Now, of course, the question: who killed Bruce Lee? It's normal to ask this. And pay attention now, we have the burning issues. Really, I'm not kidding. Okay, I immediately go.
Could it have been Chow who killed Bruce? There have been several reports that Chow and Lee had a strained relationship with many arguments on set. They disagreed on the direction of the company many times and were visibly upset with each other. A few months prior to Lee's death, Bruce had collapsed on set, and rather than phoning an ambulance, Chow called his personal doctor to care for Bruce. The day that Bruce died, Chow attempted to revive Bruce himself instead of phoning for an ambulance. With Lee becoming a star in America, Chow feared that Bruce would leave him behind and dismantle the company. With Bruce gone, Chow could gain full control of his company and would own all the rights to Lee's films, keeping all of the proceeds for himself. Had Betty poisoned Bruce? If so, what was her motive? Betty was his mistress and loved Bruce, knowing that she would never truly have Bruce's heart. Surely Bruce wouldn't leave his family behind to continue a new life with her. Did she do it for love? Did she conspire with Chow to take Bruce out? Why did she first contact Chow when she found Lee unconscious, instead of calling for an ambulance? But what about the Chinese triads? It was rumored that the triads had ties to the film industry in Hong Kong, and with Lee's popularity growing, the Chinese mafia and movie production companies were losing tons of money. Those that couldn't afford to hire Bruce risked going out of business as Lee was dominating the entertainment industry. Some speculated that Lee refused to pay the triads for protection, and as a result became an enemy. Did the triads work with Betty to take Bruce out? Who killed Bruce? With Lee's passing, Chow grew to become one of the largest film producers in Hong Kong and dominated the genre for 2 decades. The general consensus was that Bruce died from swelling in his brain that had been the result of several conditions. Bruce had his sweat glands removed from his armpits so that he wouldn't look as sweaty on camera. Did Bruce have a heat stroke that led to his death, caused by being unable
what
to regulate his body?
I have just made you see? We understand who killed Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee's death was a murder, for sure. Have you understood? Now, other shocking images. So, I want to make you see a really shocking, very rare, extremely rare images. So I start and I tell you warning because these images could disturb the sensitivity of the viewers. I go. I make you see very, very, very rare photos, unlosable for all the fans of the myth, Bruce Lee, and also for the viewers. I start with a very rare photo. In this photo, Bruce Lee was newborn, and this photo was snapped in 1940. I want to make you see better the photo. Forgive me. These were the wonderful parents of Bruce Lee. As you may see, both the mother and the father were very, very gorgeous. The mother, fabulous, and also the father, so handsome. And this was the little dragon Bruce Lee newborn in 1940. Unlosable photo. Excuse me. Okay. And now, other photos. This is not very rare, but it's too much beautiful not to show you the photo of Bruce Lee with Brandon Lee. It's lovely. And now I make you see here the deserved star in the Walk of Fame of Los Angeles. Absolutely deserved. And now I make you see for people who have never seen it before. These are the tombs, the gravestones of Bruce Lee and, unfortunately, Brandon Lee. Bruce Lee died at only 32. And it's very interesting to see that on his tomb there is this symbol, the yin and yang. Do you see it? Okay. And here, another murder. Brandon Lee, real name Brandon Bruce Lee, died, killed. He was only 28. Father and son, suicide, both murdered, but the two murders are not connected. And now I make you see the absolutely the strongest photo of the corpse of Bruce Lee. Be ready, because it's really terrible. These images are terrible, but because we must see how they reduced him, because all the people all over the world must know that Bruce Lee had been killed. Here we are. Be ready. This is the photo of Bruce Lee at the morgue before autopsy. You really don't recognize him. Autopsy photo of Bruce Lee. It's a shocking photo. And do you see the head of Bruce Lee? It was completely swollen. Of course, he was hit by, for example, aneurysm or another cerebral edema. But what provoked this? This is an injustice. And now, the latest photos of Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee in the coffin and other rare photos. I know that they are shocking, but it's necessary. I'm really shocked. So, before making up the corpse, because you know that when a person dies, there are makeup people who make makeup to dead people. This is how he was before the, of course, before the makeup, of course. Before the makeup, he was so you can see that you don't recognize Bruce Lee. The head's swollen. And instead, they made him, of course, beautiful on the grave. And this is the Bruce Lee with makeup, day of the funeral, in the coffin. And as you may see, no mistakes. And he was very, very young and handsome. And then I make you see another photo taken by his funeral. Okay, and I also want to make you see the last one. Okay, these are shocking photos, but at least it's a way to, it's also a way to say goodbye, and we will see maybe again after death. I don't know. This is the last photo of Bruce Lee in the coffin when they close the coffin, the last one. So rest in peace, Bruce Lee. We all love you, and thank you for your legacy. Thank you.